All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well on this Friday. And we've got some information, I guess you could call it news. At the very least, it's something of an update concerning the Seattle Seahawks. And I imagine that a lot of people are going to at least find this to be somewhat interesting, even if it's unlikely that anything really comes of it. And if nothing else, it could be a little bit of a window into the way this team is currently thinking about things. So, if you guys have been following the NFL at all in the offseason, you've probably been somewhat familiar with the Terrion Arnold situation. His circumstances this offseason have been so bad that he's been released from his former team, the Detroit Lions, and now apparently the Seahawks are among the teams that at least have a little bit of interest in him. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. And yeah, I don't know to what degree everybody has been following the Terrion Arnold saga over in Detroit. I've been following it a little bit. I'm not going to go into immense detail here, but suffice to say, he got in a lot of trouble this offseason. He got involved in a pretty ugly situation involving some kind of a kidnapping, and it got so bad, the Detroit Lions just decided to straight up release him and wash their hands of the entire situation. Well, apparently there is some room for interpretation in how involved he may have been in the circumstances, and there is a possibility he may end up getting by without actually having his career completely ruined. It could be a situation where he doesn't necessarily go to jail, but gets suspended by Roger Goodell for some period of time for breaking the personal conduct policy. There's a little bit of a range here of outcomes with Terrion Arnold, which means that there are a handful of teams out there that are now kind of circling him, wondering if maybe they can get a talented young player for not much of a commitment. And supposedly the Seattle Seahawks are one of those teams. According to Aaron Wilson, a pretty reliable beat reporter here, the Houston Texans have worked him out, and three teams that have been in touch with him include the Seahawks, the Colts, and the Jets. Now, there might be other teams that have contacted him, but those are the three teams that are being called out here. So, if those are indeed the four teams that have actually expressed significant interest here, I think that's worth at least thinking about. I think that is, at the very least, worth thinking about for a minute, although you definitely shouldn't go too far with something like this right now. Now, we did get this earlier today, and this is going to make it a lot easier for Terrion Arnold to actually put his skills out there. This is going to make it a lot easier for him to actually meet with teams and potentially sign with somebody. He does not need to wear a GPS device as a condition of his release, so ruled a judge on, well, today. So things are kind of clearing up a little bit for Terrion Arnold to, at the very least, have an opportunity to join a team. But at the same time, he's still involved in a pretty ugly situation here. And until it completely clears up in his favor, you wouldn't really expect the Seahawks to be the team that would be intrigued here. There are teams out there that are willing to overlook things like this. I don't know if the Seahawks would be your first expectation. But nevertheless, let's talk a little bit about Terrion Arnold because there does seem to be something here at least. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the Prize Picks app, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball. We got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like. Prize Picks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about Team Picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. Now, Terrion Arnold is a former first round pick, right? He was a 24th overall pick out of Alabama. So this is a credentialed, talented, and capable player. This is somebody that had a lot of hype coming out of college. I remember when he came out of college, I remember looking at him. I remember scouting him. I remember having some degree of interest in him. He did go not terribly far after the Seahawks first round pick in 2024. So Terrion Arnold was somebody that I was aware of there potentially being some degree of interest in. You play at a big college like Alabama, you get coached up by somebody like a Nick Saban. You've got a little bit of a resume here that is worth paying a little bit of attention to. However, for whatever it's worth, and it should be worth something at this point, he has been a pretty awful football player so far. Through 2 seasons, he started basically every game for the 2024 Lions that obviously had that phenomenal regular season, and some people might make that a point in his favor. But in 2025, he only played about half the season, actually a little bit less. And while he did make a lot of plays on the ball, he did have a lot of pass breakups. Overall, he has been considered to be a big disappointment so far in this league. You go down to his coverage numbers, they are not particularly strong. If you look at the Pro Football Reference numbers here, allowed nearly 700 yards in 2024, would have probably allowed about 700 if not for the fact that he missed a game and missed a little bit of time. And then last year, before in the time that he did play, he was also kind of getting lit up, has allowed 7 touchdowns in 2 seasons. So the only thing you can really say in his favor is that the Lions are usually playing from ahead, so you're going to get passed on more, right? When you are on a team that is always scoring a lot of points like the Lions were in 2024, you're going to get lit up a little bit in coverage in a way that might not be completely reflective of your abilities and your skill level. But 2025, the Lions didn't even make the playoffs. They were not that great of a team, and his play remained pretty substandard. And I mean, given how little he played, it was just as bad of a season. And you go to a Pro Football Focus and you take a look at what he's got. Their numbers are not much better. They actually have him dinged for about 800 yards in 2024, and they are far less generous with the pass breakup number, and also 16 penalties in a pretty limited sample size. Like, he is drawing penalties at a very high rate so far. Now, he's currently 23 years old, so he is still very young. There's no denying his talent, and you would expect him to get better. Maybe a better situation will allow him to thrive. Maybe he can unlock his abilities if you give him a little bit more of a favorable opportunity. Maybe getting coached up by the right people. Maybe losing Aaron Glenn, going from last season or 2 seasons ago to last season, was a big deal for him. So there could be some things that you can point out with Terrion Arnold that maybe would push you in the direction of thinking that you need to give him a chance if you are a team that needs a corner. But overall, his NFL career has been pretty bad so far. And I mean, we have a former first round pick corner on this team who was pretty good from day one almost. So yeah, it's just one of those things where is the juice worth the squeeze? Because there is some squeeze here. Even if he is somehow going to get out of this situation that he's in, it's not it's not like he did nothing. It's not like he's completely innocent and they just have the wrong man. It's not like I seriously doubt he's completely without blame in this situation. So there is some kind of a squeeze here. Now, Bob Condotta had this earlier today. My understanding is Seahawks did apparently place a call along the lines of their usual checking in on everything policy, but are not expected to pursue this further. And I do think that is a very compelling point to make when stuff like this happens. And it's something that this is a kind of an opportunity to discuss it again. Generally speaking, I think a good general manager and a good NFL team, or any sports team in general, should be involved in everything that might be happening around the league, if only so they know what's going on, regardless of whether or not they personally have any interest in it. Like, that's your job. And these guys work long, long, long hours. So when something comes up around the league, even if you have no interest in it, you probably still want to insert yourself in the conversation so you can figure out what is going on. And when you see something like this, it's easy to let your imagination wander pretty far with what might be going on and whether or not the team is actually interested. Most of the time, the answer is probably no, and they're just trying to interject themselves so they're aware of where he might go. Like, Terrion Arnold probably not going to go to the Seahawks, but what if he goes to a division rival? What if he goes to a team that we play this year? Things that may matter to the team beyond just who is, whether or not the team actually wants him. So I don't expect anything to happen here, and just understand that, a good sports team, and not every team is like this, but I do think it is kind of a prerequisite of the job that you're willing to make every phone call possible to understand things, even if you yourself are not interested. Now, the interesting thing here might be the fact that the team wants a cornerback. They feel like they need another corner. So maybe we can keep an eye on some guys as the offseason continues to tick down here. Maybe they go after another corner, but I don't think it's going to be Terrion Arnold. Doesn't seem like the kind of thing we would do. And this isn't like Quentin Dunbar, right? Dunbar had played incredible football the year before we acquired him for Washington. Terrion Arnold has not been incredible at much of anything so far in his career. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think, but probably not a lot here. All right, see you later.